Hello, and welcome to the Random Podcast, a podcast where we talk about random and dumb things. I'm Tyson.
And I'm Ron, his grandpa.
Yep. And I got Grandpa here today, and we're going to talk about the Navy and his experience in the military, because you did that. When did you start?
I went in the Navy in 1969.
So how old were you?
I was 20 years old.
20?
I turned 21 in boot camp.
So like your birthday was in boot camp?
Yep, it was.
Best birthday of your life, right?
Yeah, probably.
Now, didn't you say you joined the Navy because you didn't want to be drafted in something else?
Yes. When I was going to school, I had a deferment as long as I was in school. But when I graduated, I was subject to the draft, and my number was really low. So I knew that I'd shortly get drafted after I got out of school. I enlisted in the Navy to keep from being drafted into the Army.
And what was going on during that time again?
When I was in the service, the Vietnam War was going on.
Yeah, Vietnam War. And you didn't want to be, what were they called? Ground pounders?
Yeah, that was kind of the slang term for the Army.
Yeah. So you joined the Navy. So when you were in the Navy, what rank did you get to?
Well, when I was in school, I got to the rank of petty officer third class, and while I was in the Navy, about a year before I got out, I made it to gunner's mate second class.
Okay. Now, petty officer isn't an officer. That's just kind of a name, right?
Yes, that's an enlisted name.
Okay. And then gunner's mate, do you help shoot, or what does that do?
Well, if you have a different, those are called rates, and it's things that you did in the service. You could be a cook. Boatswain's mate is a guy that he helps maintain the ship while we're underway, and they just do odd jobs on the ship, whatever needs to be done. My rate was a gunner's mate, which I helped maintain you could help maintain the guns or the missiles or whatever it is they have on the ship. And my job was an ASROC gunner's mate. So I maintained the ASROC missiles.
Okay. So you're just keeping them clean, making sure they're working and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we needed them, we wanted to make sure they worked.
Yeah. Did you ever need them?
No, fortunately we didn't. We shot an exercise missile once in a while just to make sure the system worked, but I never shot a real one.
That's good. So is there like a specific kind of missile or gun that you remember using?
Well, I maintained the ASROC launcher system, which ASROC stood for anti-submarine rockets.
Okay.
What they did, if you ever needed them, you would fire them off the ship, and it was hooked in with the sonar system, so we knew about where the submarines were. And that's what we did, was to shoot those rockets out, and then they would hit the water, and then it was a torpedo that would become active when water got into it, and it would start searching for the submarine. When it found it, it would lock onto the submarine, it would head for it, and when it got there, it would explode. Hopefully it would destroy the submarine.
Nice. So do you remember what ships were you on? Like, were you on multiple during that time?
Yeah, I was on two different ships. The first one I was on, it was called DDG-21, which is a destroyer. The name of it was the Cochrane. The second one I was on was a DLG, and it was just a little bit bigger. It was a destroyer leader, and that was a DLG-15, and it was called the Preble.
Don't the destroyers kind of go around the aircraft carrier?
Yeah.
So you guys are just watching for submarines?
Yeah, we kind of protect the aircraft carrier. We do other things too, but that's mainly what our job was during the Vietnam War.
So are there just like a bunch of destroyers around the aircraft carrier, or are there different ships too?
Well, there's other ships too, because we have to have ships that have fuel on board so we can be refueled. They have what they call store ship, which brings the food over for everybody. So there's a lot of different kind of ships that are in there that help support the group that's going over.
So what was life on the ship like?
Well, pretty crowded.
Yeah.
There was, I think, over between 200 and 300 guys aboard a destroyer. And a destroyer seems pretty big, but when you get that many guys on there, it's not all that big. And basically, you get up in the morning, you have work that you need to do on your system. You do testing and maintenance and just general greasing and kicking the tire type maintenance. Eat lunch and just do different things. We have, during the day, a lot of times we'd have, like, the helicopters would come with the pallets of food. So we'd have to help carry the food down and put it away. So the cooks had something to to fix. We also had rearming where they would bring over ammunition that we shot, and we'd have to take that down to the magazines and put that away. And then they'd bring the mail, and if we needed repair parts, they'd bring those every now and then. So we had a lot of different details where we'd have to get all guys on deck, and that's what we did, was help put things away when it came on board.
So I'm guessing you slept in a room with like a bunch of other guys with bunk beds and stuff?
Yeah, we had bunks. The first ship I was on, they were 2 high, and the second ship I was on, they were 3 high. So you just climb in, and the first ship I was on, the mattress was just a canvas stretched across some pipes, and then they put like about a 2-inch mattress on top of that. And the other one was a metal box it was the size of a bed, single bed, and it had about a 3-inch mattress on it. And then you lift your bed up, and your clothes and things were underneath your bed. So it was pretty compact. You didn't have a lot of stuff.
Did being a petty officer do anything for you? Or was that just a title and it didn't come with anything?
Got me more money.
More money?
At the end of the month, that was about the only thing it got you.
Oh, it counts. What kind of food did you eat?
Oh, we had about everything. We had, for breakfast, we'd usually have eggs, bacon, and we'd have oatmeal or cream of wheat or things like that. For lunch, they'd have some kind of a meat, potatoes. One thing they liked to do was steam broccoli, and they didn't do anything to it but steam it, and I didn't care for that. So that seemed like that's one thing we had about every day. It must have been cheap.
Probably. So as you're maintaining things on the ship, you're doing things, you're probably doing like 10 different things a day, right?
Oh, probably.
What happens if you forget something or leave something, mess something up?
It depends on what it is that you forgot. If it was something minor, usually nothing, but if you forgot something major, get your fanny chewed out.
Do you remember if anything like that happened to you, if you forgot to oil everything or lift a wrench?
Well, I can't think of anything specifically, but I'm sure it did from time to time.
And you did say if anything major happened, there would be like a little prison on the ship, like a jail cell or two?
Well, they didn't really put anybody in jail. What they did, they would restrict them to the ship. That was jail enough.
Oh.
When you come into port, so you get liberty, which means you can go on shore and do what you want to do. If they got in trouble, they would be restricted to the ship and they couldn't go. So that was, after you've been at sea for like 30 to 45 days, that's a pretty big deal for a guy to get off the ship for a while.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. Now before we get back to the episode, I want to quickly tell you about our sponsors W Energy and First Form. You'll find information and websites in the description below. Now if you go to w.gg and type our code Random Podcast in at the checkout, that'll give you 10% off your purchase. And with First Form, all you gotta do is click the link in the description below. Thank you guys, this really helps us out a lot. Now, let's go back to the episode. Do you know if Navy boot camp is the same as the other ones? Is there just basic training that's kind of universal for all branches?
Well, I'd say it's similar because what they do, they try to make you more physically fit than what you were possibly when you came in. But I think the main thing they try to do, they try to instill in you that you don't question what they tell you to do. Because if there is a war, they don't want somebody arguing with them. When you give them an order, you don't want them to question it. You want them to do it. And in a wartime situation, to me, that's the way it has to be. And I think today, I don't know that it's that way so much. But when I was in, that was pretty much the way you were when you got out of boot camp. You pretty much did what they told you to do. Unless it was an unlawful order, which sometimes that happens, not very often. But you didn't have to obey an unlawful order, but there were few and far between.
After the Navy, did you just work until the war was over, or did you have like a deployment period?
Well, I was on 2 deployments. I was on 1 deployment with the first ship I was on, the Cochrane, and then I got transferred to the second ship, the Preble, and I had a deployment with that one. Both of the deployments were to Vietnam. And what we did over there, we did what they call plane guarding. We would follow an aircraft carrier when they would launch and recover aircraft. And we were there in case any of those airplanes, for some reason or another, didn't make it to the ship or to the carrier, or that they missed the runway and maybe fell off the front of the ship. We were there to pick them up. And we only picked up two pilots on one plane when they were out. They had a dogfight with a Russian MiG, and they got shot in the plane where it disabled the plane and couldn't land it. So they came back, got over the Tonkin Gulf is where we were. They had to eject out of the plane, and it crashed into the water. But we went over there and we saved both of them. So that's kind of what our job was.
After that, did you do anything other military related?
Well, we had a mission where we would go, and we were what they call on the gun line. They would call sometimes they needed support in certain areas of Vietnam, and our job would be to shoot the guns over in this area. I don't know what they were shooting at. It was far enough away we couldn't tell. They just gave us the coordinates and we shot there. But we shot a lot of rounds.
And then I think you told me before you kind of left the military. Like, did you leave the military, or was your jobs that you had to do kind of over by the time?
Well, my enlistment was up.
Okay.
So I was able to get out at the end of 4 years. And when you get out, you're never sure whether you're going to stay out or what's going to happen. So when I got out of the active service, I went into the reserve. And here in Nebraska, the reserve was just a building, and all you ever did was sat in a classroom, and they wanted you to study all the time. Well, that gets old after a while. So I had a friend that was in the Air National Guard, and he said, transfer over here, and then we have things to do that are meaningful. So I looked into it, and I could transfer to the Air National Guard, and about the only thing I could get into was either weapons or egress. And egress is working on the ejection seats. So I transferred to the Air National Guard then. That's what I did for almost 20 years, was to work in the ejection seat, the room.
You just manufacture them?
We didn't manufacture. All we did was we'd take them out of the aircraft, put them back in, and then after so long a time, they had to do special inspections on them. So we'd bring them into the shop, and we'd take them, tear them down, rework everything, put them back together. We had to test everything to make sure it worked, and then it was ready to put back in the airplane again.
So now that you've been in the military for 4 years, you said?
4 years active, yes.
4 years active, and then reserve. What do you have access to now?
Well,
or at least what are the perks and benefits to be?
Well, you know, when you're in there and when you're younger, it's kind of hard to see what the benefits are. All you can actually see are the bad things that you don't like. But some of the good things are actually very good, because when I got 60 years old, I was able to get a retirement after I stayed in for 20 years. And then all my military or all my medicine through the military is paid for. It doesn't cost me anything. I just tell them what the prescription is. They fill it. I go get it. And then we have a BX, which is like a variety store, kind of like a big box variety store. And you can go in there and you can buy whatever they have. And there's a lot of things you can order too that they don't carry, and there's no sales tax on that. So that's kind of a nice benefit. But I think the main thing that people don't realize is their medicine is paid for. Mm-hmm. And then if you go to a doctor, I'd say probably 95% of your cost for a doctor is paid for as well. Most of the time, 100% is, if you watch who you go see and what that's about. So it doesn't cost hardly anything for a doctor or prescriptions. That's a big deal.
And after over 4 years of being in the military, that probably feels pretty well deserved, I would say.
Well,
was it hard work?
Yeah, I would say it was pretty hard work. It can be dangerous. I was pretty fortunate that, you know, while I was in the military and I was on one of the cruises in Vietnam, we had a gun that shot at our ship, and it hit the ship high up in the tower, and it knocked all of our radar and things off the mast and did a little damage to the bulkheads on the ship and part of just above the waterline, poked a couple holes in the ship. So, you know, we were pretty fortunate there. Nobody got hurt, but it could have been bad. And we had what they called our sister ship. They were on the gun line, and they had 5-inch guns, and they had one round that didn't go off in the barrel, and they had trouble getting it out of the barrel. Well, the barrel was so hot that it cooked off, and it exploded, and it killed several people, and it basically blew the gun mount off the base of the ship. So bad things can happen, but that's the worst that I knew about when I was in the military.
Did you ever aspire to be in the military when you were a kid? Or, like, what did you want to do when you were growing up?
Well, I never thought about the military very much when I was growing up. You kind of end up having to deal with that when you get to be a teenager, because I think it's 18 when you have to register for the draft. Even though they don't have the draft anymore, it's still a means to get people in the military if they need it. So it's not quite as daunting as it used to be, because most kids, if they get in the military, it's because they want to, not because they get pushed in by the draft.
So, to anyone who would be aspiring to go into the military, work for something, would you recommend the Navy or a different branch? I suppose you don't know many other branches.
Well, I don't know much about the Army, but if a person gets out of school and he really doesn't know what he wants to do, I would say the military is an excellent place to go. If nothing else, it gives you a trade to come back to once you get out of the military. It might not be exactly what you want to do, but it would be a trade that you can make a living at. And a lot of times you have the option when you get in the military that you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do. I think it's a little bit easier nowadays than what it used to be. And a lot of times you'll get what you want. May not be what you thought it was, but to me, it's an excellent way to kind of get your feet wet on different things that you might want to do in your life. And one thing about it, you get to see the world if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and I know I was talking with my parents about it. You can do certain things and have the military pay for your college.
Yep.
And then go in and do that for the military. So that's definitely an option. And yeah, I feel military people are always, to me at least, highly respected. Like, if you go into the military, you've done some hard things.
Well, you've done a lot of things that are above your age level, pretty much. Because anybody that's in military, the airline or the pilots that are in the fighter jets, a lot of those guys, early 20s.
Yeah.
You make you wonder, how in the world can they fly such a sophisticated airplane at such a young age? But it's pretty intense training, so they're good at it. So there's a lot of things you can do.
Gotta respect the dedication of those people.
Yes.
And their perseverance to go through years of that.
Yeah, they probably go through a couple of years of training just to learn to fly that way. And then they have to enlist for more years. But if they become a pilot, they'll get a lot of hours in the air, which is good training for if you want to become an airline pilot or something like that. You need a certain number of hours, which you'll probably already have when you get out of the military. So it'd be a good way to become a pilot if that's what you want to do.
After you completely, for the most part, left the military, so how long were you in the reserve for?
I think I was in the reserve probably 24 years.
24 years.
Yeah.
So then after that, does the military have any kind of way to get you back in, or are you kind of free from having to do anything for them?
Well, when there's peacetime, like we're not at war, there's no real reason to get you back in. But if there was an all-out war, then they probably could call you back in.
Yeah. Is there like a certain point after retirement maybe when they can't do anything? Even like if there was a war today, but you're retired now, they probably can't do anything.
Well, I'm old enough now, they probably wouldn't want me anymore. But
yeah.
At first, when I did retire, if it happened right after that, it's a possibility that I could have been called back in. And if you're already in and your enlistment's up, if you're in a war already, they may extend you. They may not let you get out, which that hasn't happened that I know of. But I mean, it's something that could happen.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast, Grandpa. It was a pleasure talking with you and learning about your experience in the military.
Well, I always enjoy talking about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is Tyson and Grandpa signing out.